you truly do feel better equipped today than you did a few weeks back, a few months ago? How many of you feel a little bit more motivated? You got a little bit more in your toolkit and you feel a little bit more motivated. Session 12, you're graduated. Now for the really tough questions. How many of you still dread making that next call? They keep telling you, hey, you're one call away from the job. You can do it, just one more call, and you just don't want to dial. Is that you? Or maybe you know, you get that interview, and you know you're the right one for the job. You know it, you feel it, but you got those knots in your stomach because you hope that they see in you what you know is in yourself. Will they know that? Will they recognize? Will they see? And you know it's the perfect job for you. Or maybe you've been on a lot of interviews. You've been on a lot of interviews and no one's biting. Or maybe simply we're even losing our confidence because we're wondering where our next paycheck is coming from. My friends, welcome to my world. That is what I do. My next job, my next client comes from the next prospect that I get to see, that I get to sell my services to. And unlike you, you usually respond when there's a job opening, right? Many of mine don't even have an opening. What do I have to do? I have to go in there and I have to convince them that there is an opening. Transition. Wes, you said you've been through it a couple of times. How many of you have been through it a couple of times? Ooh. That's all right, Kat, because you know what? I get laid off pretty regularly. Yeah. It could be when that one-day gig is over, but I was excited. I got paid for the one day. Now, oh no, there's nothing on the calendar tomorrow, the next 3 weeks, the next 3 months. Or maybe I'm lucky enough and I get a decent consulting project and it lasts and then it ends. Or maybe it's just a short term. They say, hey, Marianne, we want to hire you to come in and do some team building for 10 days. And I'm all excited. And then the 10 days are over. Guess what? I'm in transition. Or how many of you, like me, were affected in 2008 when the job market crashed? My largest client bringing in 70% of my income / 65% of their workforce, and my training went with it. Except for unlike their real employees, they didn't give me any unemployment. Or maybe I need time off, like in 2004 when my mom took ill. Actually, it was 2003. And yes, I took over 10 weeks flying back and forth to Massachusetts. And I didn't have FLMA to guarantee me a job and a client when I came home. My life is transition. There's no vacation pay. There's no sick pay. No time off. Why am I telling you that? Because it's what I do, and you know what? I actually love doing it. And so my job tonight is to share with you how for 30 years, I've basically only been employed 3 years of my 30-year career. That's it. And I'm here to say in the year's toughest economy, I'm hearing it from all over in 2011, consultants, people who do what I do, people in transition are saying, Marianne, oh, are you getting any business? There's no work out there. I'm here to tell you I'm having my best year ever. Now, Roy will tell you that's because he partners with me a lot now. It's probably true, and I also believe in that guy up there, and I believe he's been bringing us some blessings too. But my goal tonight is to do 3 things. Number 1, I just hope to give you a little bit of inspiration. Because if this kid who moved to Boston, Mass. at 21 years old in a little Chevette, 1 suit, and a black and white TV, could make it in a city like Boston, Mass. selling insurance for 10 straight years and then come out here in '94 and start a business, any one of you can do it because you probably have a lot more skills than I have in your field. I hope to enhance your job search. How many times do they tell you you're 1 call away from the job? I'm here to say you're probably just 1 skill away from your next job. And it's probably a sales skill, not a job skill. So I hope to enhance those skills with you, just quickly give you some tips that can enhance your selling skills and encourage you, because someone was saying earlier, how many of you feel that this is your day some days? By the way, I had one last Friday. So we all have them, but the purpose is just to give you that little bit of extra. Tonight I'm going to give you the cliff notes from my new book. It's called The Sales Messenger, 10 lessons of sales success in your business and personal life. I'm just going to give you the cliff note versions of it. And the book is actually about a man named George who coaches 3 struggling sales professionals from 3 different industries and shows them how to apply the sales cycle to those industries, as well as one woman in the book is a volunteer for a group called Community Chest, similar to like United Way. So this coach is actually showing 4 different people throughout each chapter at the same time how to apply it. I hope to do that with you, so we're going to go through the 10 lessons, and what I want this all to achieve by the time we're done today is to take everything you've learned. I mean, you've learned what? Negotiations, interviewing, networking, what else? How to ask questions, a lot of good things. What I hope to have you do is just be able to gift wrap it, that's all. Just be able to gift wrap all these great skills that they have given you. Put a bow on it, because let me ask you, what do you think people buy? They buy the package, don't they? That's what Wes was talking about, the package, the brand. And that's what I'm going to talk about, how through good sales language can you gift wrap yourself so that when you're in that interview, at the end they're saying, this is my guy. This is my guy. Or don't let that woman get out the door. We got to get her before someone else scoops her up. To gift wrap it, that just like a little kid who sees that present on the table, they want it, they can taste it, and they do not want to lose the opportunity of hiring you. Now, before we get going, there's a few things I like to clarify, because my business truly is sales, and there's a lot of other great sales trainers out there and people who do what I do, and of course we all have our own philosophies and our own definitions. I just want to share mine just to make sure that we're all on the same page. And so the first question I have for you is, how would you define selling? Anybody here want to take a stab at it? Cheyenne, we can give a book for the first answer. Yeah, right there, Cheyenne, in the back. Influencing what?
Influencing someone to buy the product you're marketing.
Very close, okay? And here's what I don't want you to forget. Selling it's not just about selling a product. The way that I define selling, influencing, yes?
Persuading somebody that their best interests and my best interests are the same, and we can reach a consensus on that, and maybe I can make a commission in the deal.
Give him a book too, Cheyenne, because that is a really good answer. My definition is persuading, influencing, convincing people to your way of thinking as it relates to your ideas, your products, and your services. Too many people think of selling as a profession, and they look at it as somebody who just is in the trade of products. It is about selling your ideas. How many of you came from corporate America and you weren't heard? You told them something, and maybe you see them doing something after somebody else told them, right? Do you have to sell your ideas in corporate America? How many of you have kids? I always like to say, if you're not selling your kids, someone else is. And I'd rather have them buy into my ideas, my values, my way of thinking, than the pot-smoking kid down the school hall. What I want you to recognize, and I believe this from my heart, is that everyone sells. Here's rule number 2. You see, salespeople get a pretty bad rap. As a matter of fact, what many people don't recognize, it's the highest paying profession out there, and we're raising our kids to be doctors, lawyers, and Indian chiefs, when salespeople have so much fun, make so much more money, but you see the amateurs give people like us a bad rap. Selling is not telling. If you want to take a note on anything to walk away with in the interviewing, it's selling a product, selling your kids. Selling is not telling. The next thing I want to identify are what I refer to as some simple steps of the sale. And each step has a purpose in the sale. So let's just say that I have the prospective recruiter, the prospective interviewer. I know that I have a product, I know that I have something to offer them. I maybe even have an interview lined up. What's the first step? What's the first thing I have to do in that sales process? They've already seen my resume. I'm going to meet them. I'm getting my opportunity to sell myself. So in the sale, what's the very first step of the sale?
Listen.
Find out what they need.
Find out what they need. So I go in there and just start asking questions about their needs and wants. Is there anything else I should do before I do that? Or walk in and just let them talk? Anything I should do before?
Research the company.
Build rapport. That, and by the way, we're going to get to that. Researching the company should be done way before the interview. She's got it right there. I call it the attention step. The first thing you have to do is grab their attention. And how do you do it? You usually do it some really good rapport building strategies. So now maybe it's through some small talk, a good handshake, whatever. So maybe I did research and I could throw out a one-liner about their company. I build a little rapport. What's the next thing I need to do? What was your answer?
Find out what they need.
Find out what they need. And in sales, we call it their needs, their interests, their wants, their buying motives. But here's where most salespeople go wrong. Is number one, they get their attention. They get them to like them. They build rapport. And then they go right in for the interests. And you want to know one of the biggest failures of salespeople today is they forget one thing. In this interest stage, they forget to be interesting. You see, I'm here to tell you most salespeople are boring, and no offense, most job candidates are boring. So number one, you want to capture their attention. Number two, you want to be interesting while you're capturing their interests, their needs, their wants. Third thing you got to do is you got to convince them that you are the right person for the job, and we'll tell you what's involved in that. And one of the simplest steps of the sales process, which most salespeople forget, is they forget at the end of this big long talk and this long discussion to create a little bit of desire when you walk out that door, a memorable statement of why they should hire you. Most sales are lost, by the way, step number 5, because a salesperson never asked. I think they probably taught you, don't be afraid, right, to ask where you stand or would they hire you. Most sales are lost because people don't what? Close the sale. So we're going to kind of talk a little about that. What's your name, by the way? CJ said a really good point. In sales training, when I'm truly teaching this as sales training, that fact-finding, that research, that searching the LinkedIn and the companies, all that should be done way before you walk in the door. That will give you more ammo to be interesting and engaging. And people say, well, Mary Ann, where does objections come in? Does that come in after the close? No. A good salesperson, as a good job candidate does, think of all the possible objections you could get up front and be prepared to answer them. And if you're doing a good job as a good salesperson, you are actually answering objections throughout the sale in a good conversational manner. It's the amateur salespeople that save objections for the end, and it just becomes this tug of war and somebody loses, and it's usually the salesperson. All right, so we're going to jump in now to the 10 lessons of sales success. And the first one is lesson 1. I think you've heard this. I don't think I'm saying anything that you haven't heard through career transition. And that is manage your activity. This saying, I don't know how long it's been around, but plan your work and work your plan. And you have to do this. If you want to be successful in the job market, you have to plan it out. Plan out your activity. And not just have a lot of activity, you've got to monitor and measure the effectiveness of the activities you are doing. Because they will reveal something. When a good coach is coaching football, what do they look at? They look at what? The stats, the numbers, and they say, wait a minute, if this is going this way, we need to fix something over here. That gentleman you talked about earlier, what's your first name?
Paul.
Paul, let me give you my insight on that. A lot of people will tell you they help you, and then what, they don't call you back? Here's my motto when I'm making cold calls and stuff. I always say one person, the first one, they can be a jerk. They don't bother you, it's okay, let it go. Second one, they say they're going to help you, they're going to call you, they're going to do whatever, and they don't. Guess what? Call them a jerk too. But when 3 people in a row don't follow through, my gosh, you've got a pattern. And you got to ask yourself, what's happening over here? It's all cause and effect. And if you're not monitoring, measuring your activity, so keep track of your numbers. A woman said to me, and she comes from pretty high level in the organization looking for a job, and she said, oh, I keep getting that I'm overqualified for the job. They took me through 7 interviews. And they then said, well, we really don't think you'll be happy here as much as you're overqualified. Well, if everybody's saying if it's happening, what are you doing to make that happen? Know the values of your activities. Here's where I think some job searchers and many salespeople fall into a trap. They don't know the values of the activities, and they're being very efficient with their use of time. They're getting a lot done, yet they're not effective. Think about that. Are you being efficient, getting stuff? You're working on that job throughout the day. Are you being efficient or are you being effective? And you've got to actively manage your activity. You've got to jump right in there. And I've had a lot of friends of mine get laid off, and they're like, well, I've not had this time off. I want to fix my house. I want to do this work. And then when they decide that it's time to get in the job market, guess what? They didn't realize it's an 8-month cycle to get a job for many people. All right, what do I mean by sales activity management? Manage your time. I'm a big believer in color coding. If you were to pull up my Outlook, I get so excited every time I see green on my calendar, because green leads to money. Green equals money. Does working on my resume equal money? Good answer, no. Working on your resume is an administrative duty. Does going and making some calls to people saying, hey, would you tell me a little bit about your line of work? I'd be very interested in learning about your organization. Is that green? Yes. Because guess what? They might say to you, yeah, we have an opening. Green leads to money. You're making calls, asking who knows who. If you're working on your administrative time when you should be out there doing things leading to money, good networking. If you're working on your red stuff while you should be doing green stuff, you are probably being very efficient but not really having any results. And I like to say, if you are working your plan, planning your work, and working your plan, reward yourself, because guess what? If you're working the plan the way you're supposed to, monitoring, measuring activity, you will have a job and you may not get a break for a while. I had a friend, she took the job search very seriously, and Monday through Friday, she was just getting up and she was going at it, and she was doing everything, career transition, everybody told her to do. She was going to the South Lake group, and Friday afternoon, she said, and she was so humble and so sincere, she said, but I take off Friday afternoons to go play tennis. I'm like, enjoy it. There's no reason you can't build in a little bit of blue time. And then don't forget, how many of you maybe are thinking it's time to reskill, retool yourself, retrade yourself, rebrand yourself. And maybe you don't have the luxury of having all this money in the bank so you can just go recreate a brand, right? But what you can do is do those, what I call long-term high payoff activities. They'll lead to future results, but maybe not results today. Be sure you're building in some of that. Many of you are probably at the stage in your career going, hey, what am I doing this for anyway? One of the lines I like to use is, be careful what you learn. You may end up doing it for the rest of your life. And guess what? Statistics show, you can kind of look around and see we're all probably close in age, that we're going to probably live to 100. So why not take that time to retool, reskill, rebrand ourselves, even when we get that other job, keeping that up. All right, lesson number 2 as it relates to selling, know what the heck you're selling. There are many, many, many sales that you have to close before you get to the job offer. There are many doors you have to shut, many sales you have to make before you get to the job offer. The example I like to use is your resume. It's designed to sell something. And how do you know when it closed the deal? How do you know when your resume is working?
You got an interview.
You got an interview, but I'm going to even make it so it's even faster for you to digest. I like to say, so you don't have to wait to go on that interview to reward yourself, When your phone rings, when your phone rings, ching ching, you made that sale, your resume's working. And if your resume isn't working, if you're sending out resume after resume, you've got to come to career transition and say, here's the number of resumes I'm sending out, what's going on, and they're going to look at your resume and tell you why your resume is not working or why maybe the places you're sending it aren't buying into it. But your resume is not, they're going to make a decision on that first, I'd say third of the page, whether they're going to call you or not. If you don't capture their attention, if you don't grab their interest up front, they're probably not going to get to page 2. So you've got to work really hard